Let's welcome with a round of applause our next panelists for the panel session on staying at the cutting edge of emerging technologies. We have with us Manisha Mohan, Dean, Design School, UPES, that is University of Petroleum and Energy Studies, Mr. Sanjeev Mehta, Country Manager, India, AMD, Vikram Pandya, Director, FinTech, SP Jain School of Global Management, and Dr. Kiran Patil, Head of Industry, University Industry Exchange and Business Incubator at Reva University.
There are a lot of things that's happening on the technology front. We have seen the change that has happened and how the world has, evolved in 2020. And technology is playing a very, very vital role in terms of how businesses work, colleges, universities, operate, how the students are learning, along with students, how our parents also coping up with that as well. So, technology is leading in a big way in terms of what it is, maybe from cloud to device it to data center to application to using different technologies, including augmented reality and virtual reality to skill and re-skills individuals, right? So there's a lot of things that's happening around that space. And we are excited to be part of that industry where we work with our end customers, OEM partners, cloud service providers, and many others to help and enable that.
As Anand mentioned, I've got a mix of industry and academic experience, been in the industry for a very long time and have worked in the e-learning industry, have also been actively involved in animation, virtual reality, gaming, and then moved into academics, and I'm heading a design school within UPES. And this pandemic has really taught us that digital transformation can happen very, very rapidly and touch every aspect of our lives. So I did see a lot of the learning that I did in the industry come very handy in this period, where we were really looking at all different aspects of academics, right from student experience to placements to the teaching and learning process, really looking actively at how to make it online and engaging in that online platform. So really, I saw digital transformation happen around me very, very rapidly. So it would be a pleasure to share some of the experience through the course of this conversation.
I have been in industry since more than a decade, specifically in banking, followed by, of course, academia. I have designed and delivered this program, a FinTech program for SP Jain School of Global Management. Along with that, the idea was that given COVID transformation is happening, we wanted to ensure that the students are able to learn hands-on, and that's the reason we have created cloud-based labs, around 13 of them, and we will share more in detail how to understand digital transformation and learn on your own if you want to, and how to create your own career path. Thank you.
So, myself, Dr. Kiran, and I'm heading a University Industry Interaction Center at Reva University, and we have a business incubation center where we encourage entrepreneurship and the startup ecosystem. Yes, this digital transformation, we have learned a lot during COVID times, pandemic situation, which all of us, we have faced globally, and students also, they cope up with the new online learning system along with their assessments, placement, webinars, and yes, it's a need of the hour. And definitely, I'm happy to share my experience in this platform. Thank you.
You might teach someone about deep learning and computer vision to the state of the art of what it is today, but by the time they join the industry, because the technologies are like floating targets and advancing very fast, they will need a mindset to keep learning. So the emerging technologies are opportunity and challenge both at the same time. Now, what is your perspective?
So I personally believe that technology always will change, right? It will keep on changing. And the idea will be to make sure the student is able to not only understand whatever is today, but also identify how to apply that technology in the business parlance and how can you create solutions with technology. Plus, make sure that you are able to make them curious enough. Once they are out of the syllabus and then they are joining industry, then also they can continue to learn. The industry plays a vital role. That's the reason we have industry interaction, where every time industry person comes into curriculum, they share their vision about, okay, what will happen in this industry, right? So it is always about building upon your own strength. You cannot look at saying that, okay, this is something new happening, I need to simply jump into that.
Now the institutes will have to really compete on the technology architecture themselves, right? They will have to tailor make every layer of it now, and building and welding the the most competitive stack. It can be from hardware perspective, software perspective, from institution, maybe the change in the entire pedagogy of how you do it, right? So business and technology may become very indistinguishable. So they need to combine together, not as an individual, but has to sink in together to make sure that whatever outcome that you expect, maybe from the teachers, professionals to the students, is in line with what's really required, right?
Right.
Technology is becoming, boardroom level discussion today. It's no more an afterthought. CEOs to CIOs, or even trustees for that matter today, are looking at technology as as a business initiative rather than just a tool, right? Because it's if you don't have that, you're going to be impacting both on your interaction, communication, or even for that matter, your revenue and bottom line as well.
The ability to learn is one of the most essential skills in the 21st century. Learning how to learn, I think, is a core for any student that passes out today, and in the world of the digital and emerging technologies and so much transformation. So it is important for them to be able to learn new skills, critical thinking, creativity, and also there needs to be a lot of multidisciplinary thinking and a multidisciplinary mindset, which is very important to harness some of the trends of today and tomorrow.
See, we are at the point where we have to create workforce for the upcoming industry, the industry 4.0 or 5.0. So in this, since I am from an institution, the effectiveness can be brought in by first training the faculty, staff. We need to upskill them, reskill them towards the digital transformation. Then maybe through the faculty, the effectiveness of training students would be a more better way of better approach, what I would like to add to the present discussion.
There are models elsewhere where academia actually leads innovation. Industry works in a very strong synergy with academia, from IP creation or very high-end research, or the research and development bandwidth is concerned, where the digital transformation knowledge is not necessarily transferred from industry to academia, but the other way around. In a way that innovation is led by the universities. Now, what are your comments on that? And could you share some interesting similar examples that you have been involved in?
Sure, I will start. Look, I will very quickly summarize based on what we have discussed so far, that learning is continuous process, as we all know, and making sure that you are not only able to learn whatever is current and make sure that you are future ready. You need to also change the way you are looking at the same learning pedagogy, right? Because what happens today is, let's say, so far we are learning design thinking, for example, but today we need to understand digital design thinking, which is very different. Because when you are looking at traditional design thinking, that is one thing, but how digital design thinking works, how security should be part and parcel of your design thinking rather than a patchwork later on. All those things we need to think about, right? Today we are talking about customer UI UX experience wise, but end of the day, some of the elements which are not well taught in terms of digital design thinking is what we need to look at. Similar to that, when we are talking about even AI ML, right? So AI ML, we learn about algorithms, but end of the day, we need to also understand that today algorithms you can simply download, apply, modify, do hyperparameter tuning. But end of the day, you need to also identify where to apply, when to apply, and how to apply. That is also very critical. Model diagnostic is again part of the digital design thinking, how to ensure that your model is then optimized or not. Right? So all those things are part of that. And techno-strategic and techno-functional roles are becoming more and more open in industry. And we need to also identify how we are able to include all these stakeholders in this innovation process. So university, for instance, we have our lab for neuroscience. Now, neuroscience lab may come up with some research, and that research then you can apply to the industry, and then you can identify, okay, in this design thinking, customer behavior and customer interface that I'm designing, how it is affecting neurologically, how that customer is interacting. So that is how you are first starting with academia, going back to industry, and again you are reiterating the process. There is a feedback loop which continues to happen. And
Right.
at the end, when you are looking at future-proof and future-ready workforce, we are also talking about and making sure that government is involved, regulator is involved to enhance the ecosystem and make sure it is conducive for everyone. So that is what I wanted to share from my side, because technology is approachable and affordable today, accessible also. But end of the day, you need to know what to learn and how to learn. So again, very small example of explainable AI. Today you learn AI, but then if you don't know, that regulator is not going to approve whatever model you are creating. So you need to have explainable AI to explain the regulator what you are doing and why you are doing, right? You need to have board approved policies to make sure that there is a threshold that you can agree upon. So industry and academia will always go hand in hand. In isolation, none of them can thrive, in my opinion.
Right, right. Yeah. So, yeah, Kiranji, you had to say something?
Yeah. So it's not exactly an isolation, I would say. It's a gap. Basically, it's a gap. It's a variant gap, and at a certain point of time, sometime the gap is smaller, and after a few years, we see the gap is more. So in isolation, definitely, I would not agree with the term industry and the institute are working in isolation. They are, though they are working together, but there is a sufficient gap which needs to be taken care, and which we have to fill it appropriately for the benefit of students.
Right.
We basically we do the skilling for the students. So in this process, what we identify is we analyze the skill gaps. So to do this, even we involve industry experts also. So based on that, we float the programs, industry-oriented programs, and which are being delivered by the industry experts. So which are part of, again, the curriculum and the credit-based system what we have as a private university. We
Right.
have more flexibility to take into the consideration of any of the new technologies which gets evolved. That definitely help the students in placements. Also, we are looking forward in terms of digitally doing all these virtual trainings also.
And I think there is a lot of things that institution can do in terms of, and we have come the long way, right? There is definitely, as you said, there's a gap, but what is the industry expecting? If institution pick that up in terms of skilling, reskilling of how the technology enhancement is happening, that can be a big boost in terms of the employment, right?
Exactly.
I know a favorite for Anand is on augmented and virtual reality. How do we use some of those technology or blockchain as we go forward to see how that is part of the course as a certification program or as an interest level of an individual, which will help to bridge the gap. We are looking at a lot of sales guys, by the way, right? And every industry needs sales, right? And sales is a great profession. There's a lot of money to be made. While there is gap in those fields in retail, on oil and gas, to IT, to any industry, right? What about those, sales being an academy within the institute, where you can do, your engineering, but in parallel learn about the entire, sales process. Now
Yes.
that itself can create a huge demand. And trust me, today, if I put up some numbers, the conversion ratio is less than 7%. If we had, interview about 100 people, we end up hiring probably only 7, because their entire this thing towards sales itself is not there, right? And if you really see today, a lot of these large big CEOs or large MNCs, they have been into technology and sales some point of a time, plus of course the finance, right? And that gives, because that gives you an insight towards being closer to your customer, closer to your market. And this is one place where I think this is a huge supply demand gap, and that will be my request and Hubble submission if something is built out around that as well. Of course, technology is always there to help skilling. You can use AR, VR, and various tools to do that, but it will be a good big help.
So at the same time, it would be of great help if industry gives us the exact requirements. So if this reverse engineering, if at all, if it is possible, I think most of the time when we look at the abroad universities, so almost the job role would be ready for them. So we universities basically train on the already available or existing job roles which are available in the industry.
You go for computer vision, everybody's identifying a moving car. So what we observed amongst 500 to 600 people that we interviewed, what we observed is that in the hurry to just get an industry internship, and in the hurry to qualify to get an industry internship, people are not thinking originally enough, as Manisha ji also mentioned about creative thinking. And that's where this point about a digital transformation mindset comes in. Thinking has to go fundamental. Like in the previous decade or the past 30 years, if IT was growing, IT was about programming, where you had if and else, and it was programming. Where now you are in an age of a lot of data and AI, where insights are gathered in many more innovative ways and applied in many more innovative ways. So it's a thinking change that also needs to come in.
So I just wanted to talk about my experience of moving from industry to academia. When I was in industry, I was constantly churning new projects. There were tight deadlines. There was no time to think. But moving into academics, there is a research mindset. There are different ways of looking at problems, and the best part is that faculty and students can work together on research and come up with new ideas, because students do have very fresh ideas. If you listen to them, they have a very unique ideas that could be taken forward and can really help in value creation in a company. So I would just say that there should be a way of harnessing this and maybe breaking the silos between industry and academia, because the potential is huge.
This is something which I also echo from my end, because I have been from banking industry, and then I have applied those learnings into whatever fintech world we are having, right? So when you look at the same business problem, first of all, you need to subdivide your problem to identify what is that you are trying to solve, and what is that you are trying to scale up. Is it scalable enough? And then when you are looking at from different perspective, you need to also understand, because if you are doing role playing activity, same problem statement, a consultant will look at differently, CFO will look at differently, CISO will look at differently. So you need to also allow them to think differently by making them to do some role play. And that's what we also do at our end, saying that, okay, look, you have different 7 to 8 questions. You are supposed to assume one of these roles. We give some 10, 12 roles. And based on that, you try to define what is that you will do under this scenario. Now, what happens? They are already coming from industry with some background, right? Because my students are from industry. So it is not like PG that I'm teaching right now. I'm teaching people with around 15 years of work ex. So for them, it is more application based as well. But when you are teaching to someone who is a fresher, at that point in time, you need to do more hand holding, because they are not from industry. They will not understand what is that you need to look for. But at the same point in time, role play allows them to understand the perspective of different roles that you are going to play in the corporate world. And another interesting point which we have seen in last few years, you have seen corporate universities coming up, right? Like you have, let's say, Samsung University, you have like Google and others, right? So you have corporate universities coming up. So what is happening is that one side you have traditional institutions who are moving more towards flipped classroom model due to COVID and everything. And now you have even corporate universities trying to gain that, in a way, skill, which is available at a cheaper rate. You will invest into that at early stage, and then you will try to bring them and drop them in at the early age. So you are able to get that loyalty for a longer term, right? So all those things are happening. We are not trying to create robots who are going to work. We need to create analysts, and we need to create people who can think and apply whatever they have learned. That is what my synthesis about this is.
Uh, I would I would strongly suggest industry to come forward to the institutions and set up their labs, help institution, because institution have their students as a strong resource center there. So industry should come forward and join hands and train students from the day one. Not They are not supposed to come at the end of the 8th semester or end of the course for only for the placement.
Oh, Anand does a lot of that, and he's very creative about doing a lot of things, especially, I'm repeating, but via AR, VR. I think it's a technology to leverage to create that experience, especially in times like this. It's very important, right? Happy to be of help. We do a lot of work, just to share with you, we do a lot of work with a lot of institutes. We've recently given almost a huge amount of pods, as we call it, for medical research to CSI 4Pi, right? So we're giving almost a huge teraflops of HPC cluster systems to them, right? So we are contributing from that perspective as well. And we work with our OEM partners to provide some of these work to be done. And there's a lot of things happening, and it's not just me. I know about my industry fellow colleagues as well who do a lot of these work with the institutions. It's just that we need to probably come together and probably have a little more policy around how every rupee or a dollar spent gets actually utilized more efficiently and effectively. Right.
Yes, this is the scenario. Industry won't see institution as the feeder for the workforce. That should be, the mindsets are different. Institutions are looked at the lowest priority when we have both industry institution together. So it is like industry is being taken as something very major player, but somewhere we have to look that institutions are the feeder, and they depend, industry depends on institution, which exactly what happens
There's
in
an equal
abroad countries.
Absolutely. And I'm echoing what Vikram mentioned, right? It's institute to industry and industry back to institute as well, right? So it's a two-way street, and that's how it should be. It should be working. Yeah. But I think important is probably redefining some curriculum and assessment methodology or pedagogies as well, because a lot of time, the assessment is not what you taught, but it should be what the child learned, right? You assess what he has learned rather than what has been taught to him. There's a difference between the two, right? And then we need to change, probably the content more frequently, make it as dynamic as possible for it to be a little more real.
The reason behind is again we have to go back to the gap, right?
Yeah.
The gap still exists, so that is the reason, and finally the victim is student. So though they are spending time, they're spending money, and they're not getting the right education for joining the industry. So that is where we have come up with where Reva University, we have made lot of changes with respect to skilling and skill development and giving entrepreneurial education and taking them into different innovative exercises like boot camps, encouraging them towards the startup ecosystem also. So this is where we are handling them differently.
I think teachers are now becoming more facilitators of learning, and the students are really driving the learning. So it's not really about putting dated content, etc. It's about them being able to do research and come up with their own meaning. And evaluation is also becoming more formative. I mean, that I can speak for my own university. It's happening continuously while the teaching learning process is happening. It's not like just the final exam at the end and then you're asked a lot of facts and figures, but it's more about your learning and your journey. And in our university, we've set up something called the School for Life, in which we are building life skills among all the students, all 11,000 or 12,000 students that we have. We're teaching them life skills, communication skills, skills in creativity, learning how to learn, and also technology. Emerging technology plays a very important role, and they are allowed to dabble with technology in the labs and come up with their ideas, and a lot of integration with industry. We have a lot of people from industry coming and taking master classes and sessions, being mentors to student projects.
So what I wanted to add to this is that when we look at from the industry side as well, so look, we have a strong alumni network, for example. You can always leverage that for sure. But along with that, I will share with you that, look, I am a FinTech ambassador from Uday platform. They have this platform where foundational element of FinTech is covered freely. Plus, you have industry engagement every month from different industry leaders, and they facilitate this, right? So believe me, when I say this, today you have so many conferences happening, right? Who is going to look at that conference recording again, right? So that is the issue. Again, we have so much IP getting created. While IP is getting created, let's create consumable IP where people or student can then go through in nutshell whatever it is that some thought leader is saying, and then that thought process you can then imbibe and curate and share with the student, right? That is what I think the future will be all about. You have content everywhere. Today, we don't have any scarcity of content as such, but it is more about how can you view that content together, how can you integrate it together, and then curate and give it to student so that he can consume that. That is the most critical part. Second thing is that, look, it is more about pedagogy rather than just the content also. So how to, in which order to consume content, because so many things are available freely. People are not even able to understand, okay, where should I start? That's where I believe that flipped classroom model works a lot in this scenario. You are teaching them, look, this is the methodology. We are telling them this is something you need to read, watch, explore on your own. And then once you come into classroom, you will have better understanding of the concept. You will be able to ask your question. Otherwise, it is only one way, right? I'm saying something, student is listening to that. That is not how learning will happen. It is going to be very difficult for you to make sure student is able to not only understand, but also able to apply that later stage. Right? So that is where I believe that the integration of all these different methodology is very critical. And the last point which I wanted to add here is that when we are talking about experience-based learning, right? Experiential learning, that is where even new technologies are helping a lot. So you have AI-based solutions which are available. You also have API-driven solution available where whatever you are doing, right, you can consume knowledge and showcase that, look, this is what I have consumed, and prove to your LMS saying that, look, this is my learning that I have consumed for a number of minutes, hours, and that creates your portfolio. It is more about today creating students' portfolio, which you can then show it to the corporate saying that, look, this is what I have done. This is something which I have explored. This is what I have tried to solve. Right? That is the approach I think we need to have.
I would request our esteemed panelists here to talk about one industry academia initiative that they really want to be part of or proactively engage in.
So I think the best way to apply and learn and make sure that industry is able to also share their knowledge is to do some project or POC with industry. That is what I personally believe. Right? So let's assume that we are talking about how GPUs work and how you can utilize GPU in, let's say, creating trustless networks. Right? We have blockchain and so many things today. So if you are talking about that, then the better thing will be to understand from the industry that what all hardware, software is available, And then from academia, you can curate saying, okay, you have GDPR requirement, you have this requirement. Let's create a blockchain which will be able to ensure the GDPR compliance and which will be able to ensure the privacy, zero knowledge proof, so on and so forth. So you are applying something which is more theoretical to the practical domain. So POCs are number one in my list, recommending to industry as well that they should do more, and with more universities, more often with more universities, right? Second thing which I wanted to highlight is that internship today is very boring, frankly. You are just going there and for a few months you are doing something, right? No, you need to have very clear-cut outcome-based internship, saying that, look, you are going to work on this thing and this is your baby, right? You need to work on this if required. You will need to go back to professor and ask for help if required. But this is how people will learn. MIT Media Lab, for example, does similar thing. That is why you have more IP coming out of that, right? You are talking about working with industry with outcome-based approach. It is not that somebody will just go and sit there and do something, whatever is being given to them, right? And that creates focused approach rather than just going somewhere and doing something. So focus is very critical. And believe me, that initial phase will define how student is able to approach the industry. Because if initially student is thinking that, look, I am supposed to simply work under someone my entire life, he is not going to be professional entrepreneur. That is what we term, right? So professional entrepreneurship is something you are connecting to industry, that is fine, but you are still entrepreneur in your thought process. You are looking at the resources available to you in terms of team and whatever capital budget, and then you are trying to create something new out of that while you are maintaining what is already there.
It would be better if the training industries get collaborate with the mainstream industry and help the institutions for placement. So basically, if it comes as a placement guaranteed training, then institution would be more happy, students will be more happy to accept it and undergo the training. So that this is one of the observation over years of experience.
So I'd like to see some of our students, or at least a large part of our students, go out and not just apply for jobs, but also offer jobs one day, and really create future leaders. So what I would really love to happen is more industry coming forward as mentors for young entrepreneurs, to help them build a entrepreneurial spirit, to mentor them in how to set up their own companies, how to give fuel to their own ideas and come up with value. So yes, that's where I would really love to work along with industry.
So Manisha ji, may I ask a question related to that? When you say you would love to see industry coming forward, right? So it sometimes becomes a pehle aap kind of question or sat kind of question, right? Where
Right.
For the industry to come forward, there would, what I would call, have to be some programs and some very strong marketing about those programs that are very industry focused initiatives.
Right.
So, okay, like if you create an incubation program or you create a lab that is just going to work for the industry's problems in R&D, for example, and you market that, and you have your first level of supporters or sponsors or partners, and then that program is constantly feeding by new industry people approaching you. I mean, so that would then not leave the prerogative on the industry should come to you vis-a-vis
Right.
you advertising that you have something.
Yes, in fact, you're very right in that. It has to be a two-way process, research and prototyping in different areas. I already have an AR VR lab within the school, as
Right.
well as some excellent workshops for prototyping. So it's a question of, as you rightly said, promoting it and marketing it and doing the necessary MOUs. But we can provide the platform as well as the students and faculty to work together to
Right.
create maybe some solutions for the industry.
So, I think I echo both Manisha ji and what Anand said, right? I think industry would be happy to look at it from two aspects. One is there are phenomenal mentors who can actually guide from perspective of the entrepreneur skills. There'll be a lot of mentors who are great speakers and influencers from leveraging the technology as a tool to solve a problem. It can be for various industry. Second part of that industry engagement would be, the labs and the POCs, right? How do we work towards to build that up? Which I'm sure there are lots and lots of organizations who actually do that part. They have as part of their program as well. A programmatic approach and marketing that would help for industry to come forward. And I'm sure, it's not a big ask in terms of what the industry expects, but it can help, everyone together and take it forward to the next level. And I think one thing that I strongly believe is that all of us as an individual, maybe in whatever we are doing, I think we need to put ourselves as part of the to-do list.
Yes.
Right. And, doing that as to what we do for personally or professionally is going to be, extremely critical.
From my international experience, I can divide this into three parts. One is that what works best, in my opinion, is that you have module-wise partnership or sponsorship by the industry, saying that, look, this is a module, and we want one of this corporate to come and take lead in sharing industry experience. Right? That is one thing. Second is that you have curated list of 2,000-3,000 problem statement across multiple industry. Let me tell you, it is available. Right? So you can look at those things to identify and create some capstone and so on and so forth. Then you have another approach where what happens after that, POC that I mentioned earlier, you do that as well. And along with POC, you are talking about interaction, which is through hackathon and through different innovation labs which are there with the corporates. So we have one member who just looks at different hackathons globally happening, and we share with students and encourage them to participate, because then it becomes kind of a challenging, right? You are having that competitive approach. It is similar to game theory, that you are trying to compete with someone and you are trying to identify, okay, this is the reaction that you need to have.
It's been a great session, and everyone has been very passionately involved. So thank you for bringing your insights into this. So I guess now we will open this up to the audience who would also have some questions.